Hello, and welcome back to Navigating Possibility. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Adams. The title of the podcast today is What is this coaching thing and how can it help me? So, what I want to talk about is coaching, reasons we need it, evidence for it, and the tools that we use in coaching to help people work through issues that they bring to a coaching session. First of all, physicians are not okay right now at large. In the United States, we lose 300 to 400 physicians per year to suicide. That's the equivalent of 2 of my medical school classes. We had 150 people per year in my med school class, so that's 2 to 3 times most medical school class sizes. Burnout is also pervasive. It's estimated that about 50% of physicians are burned out. In OBGYN, my specialty, in a 2023 study, about 58% of OBGYNs were burned out. We're always pretty high up there on the list. 40% of female physicians either cut back clinically or leave medicine altogether within the first 6 years after they finish training, which is not good with a looming physician shortage already. The average female OBGYN stops delivering babies in their mid-40s at about age 44, and the average male OBGYN stops delivering babies by age 52. Burnout is a big part of that. So what is burnout to begin with? Burnout is defined as a long-term stress reaction characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a lack of a sense of personal accomplishment. So this is not another discussion about resilience programs. Physicians are already resilient. The definition of resilient is able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. No physician lacks resilience. We wouldn't make it through training, school, and residency if we weren't resilient. This is not a talk about becoming more resilient because as physicians, we are already resilient. What this is a discussion about an evidence-based tool that can help physicians move through and out of burnout, and that is coaching. So what exactly is coaching? Coaching is not therapy. They're not the same thing. In fact, in coach training, we're taught to recognize the difference between when someone would be better helped by therapy or better helped by coaching. Sometimes people get both at the same time, which is perfectly appropriate. The idea behind coaching is that as a coach, my assumption is that my client is whole, functional, and capable of devising a solution to the issue that they bring to their coaching session. My role as a coach is to listen to the situation, help people to gain awareness around their thoughts, help people to gain awareness to things that may be limiting beliefs that are holding them back from discovering the solution to the issue that they bring to the coaching session, and empower clients to find their own solutions to their issues. My job is to hold space, listen to what they have to say, and help them examine their thoughts so that they can see the pattern that is occurring in their life that's leading to an emotion that is unpreferred for them. It is future focused. It's not past looking largely. That's more of therapy's role. So if you want to know the difference between therapy and coaching, most people will tell you that therapy requires someone who's trained to do it. And it more looks at things that have occurred in the past and how those things have led to thought patterns that aren't serving them. What we're looking at is what they're experiencing right now, the thought that they're experiencing right now, the emotion that creates, the actions that drives, and the results that is creating for the client in their life. One of the reasons I think that physicians are sometimes more comfortable seeing a coach, having a relationship with a coach, is that we don't keep medical records in coaching sessions. We're not diagnosing anything. We're not pathologizing anything. And again, there's a huge stigma around mental health for physicians. people are scared that they're going to have to report that they got therapy or that they took an antidepressant medication to their medical board or to their medical staff office when it comes time to renew their license or to renew their hospital privileges. Coaching sessions take that out of the equation. However, if I see a client who I feel would better be served by seeing a therapist, it is absolutely my responsibility, my ethical responsibility as a coach, to tell that to that client and recommend that they seek therapy if I feel that they would benefit from it. Coaching is also evidence-based. There are studies out there that demonstrate that coaching interventions improve well-being and decrease distress for physicians. I'm going to put the information on where to find those studies in the show notes. But the first big one came out in 2019 and demonstrated improved job satisfaction, improved quality of life, improved physician engagement, reduced emotional exhaustion, and a reduction in burnout inventory scores. Coaching basically helps us to examine our thoughts and examine whether they are true or whether they're just the story that we're telling ourselves about the circumstance we find ourselves in. So basically, it does have some commonalities with cognitive behavioral therapy, but it is not the same thing. The thoughts that we have, our reflex thoughts that we think all through the day, feel very believable to us. As human beings, we are meaning makers. We make meaning out of things. It's just what we do. Different people, though, can have different thoughts about the same circumstance. And coaching challenges us to open our minds to other possibilities that lead to different emotions. It's empowering, I think, to learn that we have control over the story we tell ourselves. So as a coach, I will encourage clients to challenge their assumptions. I will ask questions that help them to think what else could be true, or would another person in your same situation think the same thought? And part of the way we start with that process is journaling, or what my coach training called thought downloads. Basically, sit down, write out whatever's in your brain for 15 minutes, and then you can actually look at that paper and see those thoughts, and they're not just tumbling around in your brain, but they're actually out on paper where you can examine them, which helps to get clarity, which helps to get perspective on those thoughts and helps you to start to really examine them and see whether those are thoughts about your circumstance that you want to continue to think or not. So there's a quote that I like by Viktor Frankl that says, "Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." So one of the times that I have seen this idea of circumstances don't create emotions, but thoughts about circumstances create emotions. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and Cy Wakeman, who is a social worker who is in the business space helping with leadership development, was speaking at this conference. And she gave a pretty powerful example of looking at whether the circumstance is true or whether the story we're telling ourselves about the circumstance is true. She gave an example of this that I thought was pretty powerful. So she had someone stand up and basically speak for 2 or 3 minutes about a situation that was concerning to them or bothering them. And she had everybody in the room take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and on one side, write the facts that that person said in their story. And on the other side, write what story, what is thought that we're layering over that an objective third party wouldn't necessarily come to the same thought. So, and then she took that piece of paper and tore it in half and threw the story away and said, "Here, these are the objective facts. Now, what's another story we could write about that maybe wouldn't feel so painful?" It was actually a very powerful example of what we're trained to do in coaching. Our thoughts determine our experience of the world, and we're in control of our thoughts. Thoughts create emotions. And one of the things that I encourage clients all the time is to ask themselves, what do I know to be true here? And what else is the story that I'm telling myself? And to realize that uh, the client is in control of that story. We are all in control of the story we tell ourselves. So one of the other things that I deal with oftentimes with clients, and one of the things that I think leads to burnout quite frequently in female physicians, is the idea that we are people pleasers largely as female physicians. And it's because it's helped us to adapt to our circumstances as we travel through school and medical school and training. It basically has served us very well to get us where we are. And it starts out in grade school. We please our teachers to get good grades. We're the good girl. We're searching for that gold star. And then it continues into medical school. I mean, think about third-year rotations in medical school. Basically, you become a surgeon for 12 weeks, and then you become a pediatrician, and then you become a psychiatrist, and then you become an OBGYN. And each time you are doing what your mentor in that rotation wants of you in order to get a good evaluation on the rotation. In residency, I'm again using my OBGYN life as a frame of reference, but there are different ways to close a C-section incision. There are different ways to close a uterine incision. And each time you work with a different attending, you learn what they like. And eventually you figure out what they like, and you don't have to keep asking them, how do you like me to do this again? So again, we're trained to be people pleasers. There are different ways to enter the abdomen laparoscopically, and we learn what our instructor that day's preference is, and we adapt to it. It's ingrained in us. But then we get out and practice and we take that tendency to be a people pleaser with us. And we want to make everyone happy, which I'm going to talk about again in a little bit, but we want to make our patients happy. We want to make our staff happy. We want to make our partners happy. And we can't, it's impossible to make everybody happy. That's just not something that's a possibility. And it leads us to not have boundaries. And it's this lack of boundaries, I think, that is a huge contributor to burnout. There's a limit to how much one human can do. There's a limit to how many patients it's reasonable for me to add onto my schedule in a day. It's okay to say no. It's okay to have other commitments after office and say, sorry, you got here late for your appointment. I can't see you because I have to go pick up my children at school, or I have to make it to the concert. It's okay in an office setting to do that. It's okay to set boundaries around people coming into your office constantly while you're trying to chart. It's okay to say, you know what? I need to do this charting right now. Unless this is an emergency, I need you to send me a portal message, or I need you to write that down and get back to me at lunch or at the end of the day and batch your questions and let me answer them all at once. It's okay to do that. I mean, it's okay to not be completely accessible all the time. It's okay to shut your door so that you can chart in peace. But because we have trained to be people, we're trained in our experience of medicine to be people pleasers. Many times people feel guilty about doing that, or just don't think they can, and you can. So that's one of the things that I think would be a huge help at reducing burnout. One example of this that I've seen, there is a social media sort of meme that went around that is basically based on Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree, the book about where the boy goes back to the tree and the tree cuts off its arms one by one and cuts off its leaves and cuts itself to a stump, basically, to give itself to this boy. It's okay to not cut off our arms one by one till there's nothing left of us. It's okay to protect ourselves. So back to this concept of making people happy. Like, one of the things that we also ask when we're coaching clients is, what is it that you as the client can really control in this situation, and what is out of your control? So one of the ways that we're taught this in coach training is this concept of something called the manual. So the manual is basically our set of unwritten rules that live in our heads about how people should behave. Let me give you some examples of that. One of the things that I used to think all the time when I was in practice, and I had to make myself remember that this is, not a true thought, is it used to drive me crazy that patients wouldn't fill out their new patient paperwork before coming to the office. I thought to myself, how in the world do you go to a physician office appointment and you haven't filled out your new patient paperwork? What do you think is going to happen? They're just going to take you back and you're going to have time to sit and fill it out. I mean, it used to drive me crazy. That was my manual for how new patients should behave. I think we all probably have a manual for our kids should see that the trash can is full and take out the garbage without being asked. I think we all have a manual for our family should not leave dirty dishes in the sink. They should put them in the dishwasher. I think we probably have a manual for our partners should not leave their socks on the floor. I think we all have a manual for all sorts of things, but if that is not a spoken thing, if that is not something that is discussed and you're working yourself up in your brain about it, without giving that person the opportunity to know that that's something that's bothering you, then what good does that do, right? It's this manual that you keep in your head for how people should behave. And when they're not behaving that way, then how dare they? That's really not a very productive way to think about things. We only have control over ourselves and our responses to what other people do. So what we can do is set boundaries and make them clear. This is how I will respond. If you do X, then I will do Y. Or if you do X, then I won't do Y. And they have to be communicated in order to be something that changes anything. They have to be communicated. We are responsible as adults for our own emotions. It's this concept of emotional adulthood. We are responsible for our own emotions, and we're not responsible for anyone else's emotions. I can't make anyone happy. No one else can make me happy. Only what I think about the circumstance can cause an emotion, and our thoughts create those emotions. Peace will sometimes look like letting other people be wrong about you. The place where I feel like this comes up most often is the concept of online reviews. I know how I show up to patient interactions. I can't make patients happy with their care, and it's okay for them to be wrong about me. Now, obviously, if every online review that you have mentions something about office flow that could be fixed, then that's something that can be addressed. But personally, I never recommend that people read their online reviews themselves. In my opinion, offices should have managers, and those office managers should be the people who help to manage the customer experience, the patient experience, not the physician. Now, again, if there's a problem that is communicated in reviews, then that office manager can come to you as the physician and say, this keeps coming up in reviews. Can we address it? But a quote that I saw from someone in an online group once about online reviews is that reading them as physicians is just shopping for pain. And I really love that. I sat in a meeting once at my administrative job before I left the practice that I left last year to become a hospitalist, and said that to someone in administration. And I felt like they were quite shocked that I actually said that out loud. But I don't read my online reviews, and I'm not going to, because it's all they do is make me mad. And there's no reason for me to do something that just makes me feel anger as an emotion. One of the other things that we're taught in coach training is this concept of life is not perfect all the time. Life is good and life is bad. Life is 50-50. And we have been trained to stuff our feelings, to move on, to walk it off, not to show emotion. Again, as physicians, in the moment, it does nobody any good for us to break down. We deal with some of the worst days in patients' lives sometimes. And then sometimes we deal with very positive days in patients' lives. I mean, again, thinking about it from an obstetric standpoint, going from the room where there is someone experiencing a miscarriage, and then in the next room, there's someone who's finding out that their baby is a boy or a girl that day, and they're super excited about that. That's a big juxtaposition. Basically, it's a big shift in emotions that you're walking into, and it's kind of a roller coaster. And it creates emotions in us. Sometimes those emotions are good, sometimes they're not so good. No one really teaches us how to process our emotions through to their completion. And part of the reason that we get burned out is that we get stuck in negative emotion and we don't learn how to process that emotion. There will be positive emotions, there will be negative emotions. That's life. As a human on this planet, you will have positive emotions and negative emotions every day. But we have to learn how to process our emotions through to their completion. We have to sit with it. We have to name it. We don't want to necessarily what we call buffer it away with Netflix, online shopping, food, drink. All of those things blunt every emotion. So we have to learn how to sit with an emotion that's uncomfortable and feel it. It won't kill us. There is no emotion that will kill us. But we have to learn to sit with it, feel it, process it, and move forward. And we're not taught how to do that because we're taught to stuff those emotions to get through our day. And again, this is our brain protecting us largely. So if you think about our primitive lizard brain, we all, and evolutionarily, we have stress responses. And those stress responses, there are four major ones: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So most of us have heard of fight or flight, right? And that's the saber-toothed tiger is coming after you. You either have to run from it or you have to prepare to fight it, right? Freeze is the whole deer in the headlights thing. You're so stressed out that you're just stuck and you can't move. Fawn is, I think, one that a lot of us as women physicians struggle with. And fawning is trying to please someone in order to not experience the stress inducing situation. So all of those are stress responses that we have. They're evolutionarily protective, but they have physiologic consequences. And when we are in burnout, we oftentimes have not processed those stress responses. We have not felt the emotions. We have not done things to downregulate the cortisol response. And those physiologic consequences build up over time and they harm us. They harm our health. They harm us mentally. And so one of the things that we do in coaching is we try to help people name emotions and process them. So getting a little technical and neuroscience-y on you here, we all learned about the prefrontal cortex in medical school. And part of the reason that journaling helps with managing stress is that it puts our thoughts out on paper so we can see them and examine them. So there's the idea of something called metacognition. So basically we examine our thoughts and it overrides automatic thoughts that lead to unfavorable results. When we examine our thinking, it helps us to see where that pathway of thinking is harming us. And there's actually functional MRI data about this. There's something called affect labeling, basically, where if you put someone in a functional MRI and you show them negative images and they feel fear or sadness, if you have them name that emotion that they're feeling, it decreases activity in the amygdala, so the emotional center of the brain, and it increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, the emotional regulation executive control center of the brain. So sitting with a client and talking through a situation and having them actually name the emotion that they're feeling decreases the distress caused by the emotion. So that's one of the ways that coaching can be helpful in teaching people to process their stress reactions. We have to learn how to process emotions through to their completion. If we don't, we pay the price later. There are several ways, and this is not by any means an exhaustive list of how to process emotions, but there are several things that we can do to help complete the stress cycle. One of those is exercise. It's probably the best known one. I mean, if you think about it again primitively, if we're being chased by a tiger, we run and we get away from the tiger, then that's exercise, right? We have processed that stress. And then we come down from that stress after the exercise. And so, kind of the same thing. Like you have a tough day in the office and you go for a run or you go for a walk or you ride your bike or you do something physical, dance parties in the kitchen, anything like that helps you process stress. So that's the obvious one that I think we all know about. Another one is sitting in sunlight. Sitting in sunlight helps you process stress, being in the sun, or go outside and walk in the sun, which is, two at the same time. One of the ones that I still use, honestly, that I used to use when I was in practice, but that I still use is singing in the car. So when I would get in the car at the end of the day, I would turn some music on. I was the only one in the car. I would blast the volume and I would sing along with it. Great way to process stress. And I didn't even realize what I was doing was processing stress until I started learning about completing the stress cycle and burnout and processing stress. And I was like, oh, cool, I already do that. But if that's something that you do, keep doing it because it's helpful. Another is playing an instrument or doing something creative. And this is another one that I can relate to because when I was in high school, I played the piano and I would constantly, if I had a bad day, I would come home and sit at the piano. And my mom always knew when I had a bad day because I would bang out some really angry piece of music on the piano. My son plays the guitar, and I think that he uses that as his stress release as well, because his favorite music to play is Metallica or something along those lines. And so quite frequently I hear him in there jamming out on his guitar, and I'm like, cool, that's his way of processing his stress for the day. Another one is tight hugs, like long hugs, not just a quick, little passing hug, but a long, tight hug where you take a few deep breaths. And I can relate to this also in my family because during the pandemic, my younger son and I used to have what we called all's right with the world hugs. And I need my all's right with the world hug. And I mean, who wasn't stressed during the pandemic? But yeah, that all's right with the world hug was part of, I think, how we got through that time. Another way is tightening and then releasing muscle groups. You can lay down on your bed and start at the top of your head and go down to your toes and tighten and release different muscle groups. It's a physical way to release stress. Laughter, belly laughter. I mean, just really get tickled over something and laugh for a long time is another stress relief mechanism. Breath work, so deep breathing exercises. One of the coolest things I have learned in my coaching experience so far is if you put your hand over your heart and hold it there for 10 seconds and take a few deep breaths, it actually releases oxytocin, which can help to decrease stress. And then, of course, meditation. I think most of us probably also know that meditation can be a stress reliever. There are apps, thankfully, that are oftentimes free through your workplace. If they're not, they're pretty cheap, that can lead you through doing meditation. Now, personally, when I first started trying to do meditation, I got annoyed with myself because I kept getting off track. Like thoughts kept interrupting. But that's kind of the point of meditation, is for that to happen at first. And you learn how to bring your thought back to whatever your mantra for the meditation is, or bring it back to your breath. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it. When I go to coaching conferences that involve a lot of meditation, I absolutely come back home saying, I'm going to meditate all the time. And then I get back into my life, and sometimes that falls away, but I'm really trying to make it more of a part of my everyday practice. So one of the other things that I encourage clients to do in coaching is remember why they went into medicine, and look for the good moments during the day. So we are wired, we have a negativity bias. Our brains as humans have a negativity bias. And the reason they have a negativity bias, again, is evolutionarily protective. I heard someone on a podcast recently say, if you go out and you forage in the woods and you ate a, berry that made you sick, like you want to be skeptical of things, right? We're taught to be skeptical by just the experience of living as a human in the world. But we need to look for the good, and we don't often take time to notice the good things that happen in our day. So one of the things that I still do at work is I put a Post-it note on the desk where I'm working, and I look for 3 things to be grateful for that day. You have to look for them. You have to consciously try to see them. One of the things that I also recommend is gratitude journaling. So you could, I mean, I did that with a Post-it note when I was working in private practice, and I still do it on the days that I work now. But I also have an app on my phone called Gratitude Journal app that reminds me at the end of every day to type in 3 things that I'm grateful for that day. And it's not just the rote act of doing it. You don't want it to be the same gratitude every day. I'm grateful for the air I breathe. I'm grateful for sunlight. Those are great things to be grateful for. But to really get the maximum benefit out of gratitude journaling, you really want it to be specific things to that day. And then you want to sit and feel that and think about it. Again, hand over heart, think about it. It helps to form new connections in your brain to look for things to be grateful for and to focus on that each day. And it's not natural at first, but with practice, it actually can be pretty transformative. And so I encourage people to look for moments of joy in their day, and they exist for all of us. It may be a little easier for me as an OB to find joy moments just because of a lot of what we do is pretty joyful for patients. Not all of it, as any OB out there knows, but a lot of what we do is pretty joyful for patients. And so the list that I made for me is teary-eyed dads at deliveries. When dads tear up at deliveries, it always makes me want to cry. Delivering someone's rainbow baby. So when you have had a patient who has had a loss, and then they come to you and trust you with their care again, and then you get the joy of delivering that baby that helps to heal them, really take that in, write it down, make a note of it, make a note of how you feel. I mean, journaling is a pretty powerful thing for us. For me, I loved when I was in the office and had patients who I was doing their annual exam and they'd been coming to see me for 15 years. That feeling you get when you see their name on the schedule and you're like, oh, it's time to see them again. Loved that. It's one of the things I actually miss about full scope practice. But just take the time to sit again, hand over heart, feel that for a minute, take a deep breath, and then it's okay to insert those little moments in your day to find moments of joy. If you change office locations, let's say, and people come find you at your new office location, that's a vote of confidence. That's something to be grateful for. That's something that should bring you joy. When patients would tell me a friend sent them, or when I read a positive review, because I think for most of us, we think that they're few and far between. They're not. And again, I'm not advocating for people reading negative reviews, but one of the things that the person in my office before I left full scope practice who handled the reviews did is if there was a positive one, they would bring it to us, which I think is a good thing. We need that. We need intentional reminders that we do good in the world. I also had a little collection of notes from happy patients that would bring me a thank you card, or they would, write a little note and send it to me, and I kept it in a drawer. And if I had a bad day, I would open that drawer and I would pull out those notes. I think doing things like that can be very helpful for us to remember why we're doing what we're doing. And we need to find ways to help each other. I had a partner when I was in full scope practice who used to say to me all the time, if you would, either for good things or for bad things, if you had a patient who had a close call and you shepherd them through that, he would say to me, that patient was lucky you were there. We need to do that for each other in medicine. The other thing that sometimes we need to be told when we have a bad outcome is we need our partners to say things to us like, you're a good doctor. I wouldn't have done anything different than you did. We have to support each other when on the hard days. Not talking about toxic positivity at all, because that rings hollow and we all feel that. But just little mindset shift, just little things to help us remember the good we do in the world. There's a quote that went around on social media that I picked up and that I like, and it's the art of being happy lies in the power of extracting happiness from common things. We do, as OBGYNs and any woman in medicine, we do uncommon things so often that they're common to us. They're not so common to the patients that we help. And so we need to look for moments to find moments of joy and happiness in the work that we do. Because the world needs who we are. The world needs who we were made to be. Our patients, our colleagues need our talents, our skills, and our expertise. So we owe it to ourselves to change the culture of medicine. and no one's coming to save us. So we have to change the culture of medicine with the realization that the healers are not okay. And we need them to be okay and to stay in the game. That's why I did coach training. That's why I'm passionate about also being a physician advocate, because we have to protect the asset, and we are the asset. We're what moves medicine forward. And without us, things fall apart. So we have to take care of ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to be well. I'm going to end with a quote from the Hippocratic Oath. One of the lines in the Hippocratic Oath is, "I will maintain the utmost respect for human life and its quality." And that doesn't just apply to our patients' quality of life. It applies to ours too. I hope you found this valuable. Please, if you haven't already, follow the podcast. If you would like to rate it and leave me a review, I would greatly appreciate it, because it helps to get the message out to other women physicians who may need it. I have some availability for one-on-one coaching, and you can find information about how to sign up for that in the show notes or on my website at ChristinaAdamsMD.com. I also am hard at work on a group coaching program that will launch at the end of January. I have a wait list that is started for that group coaching program, and you can find that on the website as well. Links to that are also in the show notes. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be well. Thanks for listening.